Have you ever felt like you've reached the end? Like every door has slammed shut, every opportunity has vanished, and hope itself has packed its bags and left town? This is the story of Michael Richardson, a 47-year-old man from Nashville and Tennessee who believed that Christmas 2023 would be his last, not because he was dying, but because he had already died inside. This isn't just another Christmas miracle story. This is about what happens when a man who has lost everything, his business, his savings, his confidence, and his faith, finds himself on his knees with nothing left to lose. It's about the 7 days between Christmas and New Year's Eve that changed everything. And it's about the quiet, powerful way that hope can creep back into a broken life when you least expect it. If you're listening to this while struggling with debt, feeling like a failure, or wondering if 2026 will be any different from the year you just survived, this story is for you. Let me take you back to where it all began. Michael Richardson wasn't always broken. In 2019, he was thriving. He owned Richardson's Custom Furniture, a small but successful woodworking business in the Germantown neighborhood of Nashville. For 15 years, he'd built his reputation one handcrafted table, one custom cabinet, one restored heirloom at a time. He had 6 employees, a workshop he was proud of, clients who waited months for his work because they knew quality when they saw it. Michael would run his hands over a piece of walnut or cherry wood and see the finished product before he even made the first cut. His wife, Karen, used to joke that he could hear what the wood wanted to be. They lived modestly but comfortably. 2 kids in college, Emma at Vanderbilt studying pre-med, and Jake at UT Knoxville in engineering. They had a small 3-bedroom house in East Nashville. Nothing fancy, but it was theirs. Sunday mornings at Christ Community Church. Wednesday nights, Michael led a men's group. Life wasn't perfect, but it was good. It was stable. Michael had grown up poor in rural Kentucky. His father had been a coal miner who drank too much and saved too little. Michael had promised himself he'd be different. He'd build something. He'd be responsible. He'd be the man his father never was. And for a while he succeeded. When COVID-19 hit, Michael wasn't too worried at first. 2 weeks, they said. Flatten the curve, they said. He sent his workers home with pay, figuring they'd be back soon. 2 weeks became 2 months. 2 months became 6. Custom furniture isn't an essential business. People aren't shopping for handcrafted dining tables when they're afraid to leave their houses. His clients cancelled orders. New inquiries stopped completely. The phone that used to ring constantly went silent. Michael tried to adapt. He set up a basic website, tried to sell online, but he wasn't a digital marketer, he was a craftsman. Every click, every algorithm, every social media post felt like speaking a foreign language. He'd spend hours figuring out how to post photos on Instagram, only to get 3 likes. Meanwhile, the bills kept coming. Rent on the workshop, $3,200 a month. Equipment loans, $100 to $100 a month. Insurance, $850 a month. The numbers didn't care about pandemics. He burned through his savings in 4 months. By August 2020, Michael had to let his workers go. He still remembers their faces. Tommy, who'd been with him for 9 years. Sarah, a single mom who relied on that paycheck. Miguel, who'd just bought his first house. "I'm sorry," Michael told each of them. "When this is over, you'll be the first ones I call back." He meant it. But deep down, he was starting to suspect there might not be a back to come to. Karen picked up extra shifts as a nurse at Vanderbilt Medical Center. She was exhausted, running toward the virus while everyone else ran away from it. She'd come home after 12-hour shifts, peel off her scrubs in the garage, and shower immediately, terrified of bringing COVID home to Michael. They'd sit at dinner in exhausted silence, too tired to even talk about how scared they were. "We'll get through this," Karen would say, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. But Michael could see the fear in her eyes. The medical center was overwhelmed. She was seeing things no nurse should have to see. And now she was carrying the financial burden alone. The pandemic dragged on. Michael tried to keep the business alive. He took out loans, first from the bank, then from family, finally from credit cards. He told himself it was temporary. He told himself things would bounce back. They didn't. By 2022, he'd accumulated $87,000 in debt. The number haunted him. He'd wake up at 3 a.m., his mind immediately calculating credit cards, $34,000, business loan, $28,000, personal loan from his brother, $15,000, home equity line of credit, $10,000. He tried to reopen the workshop in 2021, but everything had changed. Lumber prices had skyrocketed. The few clients who came back wanted cheap and fast, not custom and quality. The young people moving to Nashville wanted modern minimalism from IKEA, not handcrafted heirlooms. Michael felt like a dinosaur watching the meteor fall. In March 2023, he closed Richardson's custom furniture permanently. 15 years of work, reputation, and dreams packed into a U-Haul and sold at an estate sale for pennies on the dollar. He got $8,000 for equipment he'd paid $45,000 for. He was 56 years old and starting over with less than nothing. Michael found work at a big-box home improvement store. He wore an orange apron and helped millennials pick out prefab cabinets that would fall apart in 5 years. When they asked if he knew anything about wood, he'd say, "A little," and leave it at that. He made $16.50 an hour. After 15 years of running his own business, the debt collection calls started. First polite reminders, then firm warnings, then threats. Michael stopped answering the phone. He'd see unknown number flash on the screen, and his stomach would drop. Karen never complained, but Michael could feel the weight of his failure crushing their marriage. They weren't fighting. That would have required energy they didn't have. They were just existing parallel lives in the same house. Emma had to take out extra student loans. Jake was working 2 part-time jobs while taking classes. Michael had promised them he'd help with college. Another promise broken. He stopped going to church, not all at once, just gradually. First he'd skip a Sunday here and there. Too tired from work, he'd tell Karen. Then it became every other week, then once a month, then not at all. The men's group reached out, "We miss you, brother, come back." But Michael couldn't face them. These were men who had their lives together, men with successful careers and paid-off mortgages. What did he have to offer them except a cautionary tale? He'd lie awake at night, Karen asleep beside him, and wonder, where was God when my business died? Where was he when I was drowning? I did everything right. I worked hard. I was honest. I went to church. I gave when I could. And this is what I get. The questions turned to bitterness. The bitterness turned to emptiness. By December 2023, Michael Richardson had become a ghost haunting his own life. Christmas Eve fell on a Tuesday. Michael worked his shift at the store, directing last-minute shoppers to wrapping paper and gift bags. Watching people buy presents reminded him of everything he couldn't afford. Emma was home from medical school. Jake had driven down from Knoxville. Karen had put up a small tree just to keep up appearances, Michael suspected. They'd agreed. No gifts this year. "We don't need things," Karen had said. "We just need to be together." But Michael knew the truth. They weren't together. They were just 4 people avoiding the enormous elephant in the room. Their father was a failure, and everyone was pretending not to notice. Dinner was tense. Karen had made her traditional Christmas Eve meal, baked ham, green beans, her mother's cornbread recipe. It tasted like cardboard in Michael's mouth. "So, Dad," Jake started carefully, "how's work going?" "Fine." "Made any furniture lately, even just for fun?" "No time." Silence settled over the table like fog. Emma tried next. "Mom says you haven't been going to church much." Michael set down his fork. "I've been busy." "Too busy for God?" Emma's voice had an edge. She'd inherited his stubbornness. "Emma," Karen warned quietly. "No, Mom. Somebody has to say it. Dad, you've given up. On your business, on church, on everything. You just shuffle through life like a zombie." "You don't know what you're talking about." Michael's voice was flat. "Then tell us what's going on in your head, because you certainly don't talk to us anymore." "Emma, that's enough," Karen said firmly. Michael stood up. "I'm going for a walk." He grabbed his coat and left, the door closing on his daughter's frustrated tears and his wife's exhausted sigh. It was a cold night, unusually cold for Nashville. Michael walked without direction, hands shoved in his pockets, breath forming clouds in the December air. The neighborhood was decorated, lights on every house, inflatable Santas and glowing reindeer. Through windows, he could see families gathered around dinner tables, laughing, opening presents early. Normal people. People whose lives hadn't imploded. He found himself walking past his old workshop. Someone else owned it now, a CrossFit gym. Through the windows, he could see exercise equipment where his workbenches used to be, motivational posters where his blueprints used to hang. Richardson's custom furniture was just gone, like it never existed. Michael walked for hours, past the downtown honky-tonks full of tourists, past the Batman building glowing against the night sky, past the bridge over the Cumberland River, where he and Karen used to walk when they were dating, back when the world was full of possibility. He ended up at a small park, sitting on a bench, staring at nothing. His phone buzzed. A text from Karen. "Where are you? We're worried." He typed back, "Just needed air. Don't wait up." Another buzz. "Emma. Dad, I'm sorry. I love you." He stared at the message for a long time, then he turned off his phone. Michael had prayed before, of course, hundreds of times, thousands. Grace before meals, brief morning prayers, the structured prayers at church. But this was different. This wasn't a prayer. It was a collapse. "God," the word came out broken. "I don't even know if you're listening. I don't know if you care. I don't know if you're there at all." The tears came then. Not quiet tears. The ugly kind. The kind that hurt your chest and make your shoulders shake. "I've lost everything. My business. My savings. My confidence. I can't look my kids in the eye. I can't be the husband Karen deserves. I work in an orange apron for minimum wage at 47 years old. I'm drowning in debt I can't pay. And I'm so tired. I'm so tired." He wiped his face with his sleeve. "I don't understand. I tried to do right. I tried to work hard and be honest and take care of my family. And for what? Where were you when I needed you? Where are you now?" A minute passed. 2. Nothing but the sound of distant traffic and the wind in the bare trees. "I don't want miracles. I don't want magic. I need help. I need hope. I need something to change. Because I don't think I can do this anymore. If you're real, if you care at all, please, help me. Show me something. Anything." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I'm at the end. This is all I've got left." Michael sat there in the cold, empty and wrung out. He'd laid it all out. The anger, the hurt, the desperation. No fancy words, no religious performance. Just raw, honest need. He didn't hear a voice. He didn't see a vision. There was no lightning bolt or burning bush. But something shifted, just slightly, like the tiniest crack appearing in a dam. Michael stood up, his legs stiff from sitting in the cold. He walked home slowly, feeling lighter somehow, even though nothing had changed. He didn't know it yet, but everything was about to. Christmas Day had been subdued. Michael had apologized to Emma. They'd opened a few small presents, practical things like socks and coffee. They'd watched old Christmas movies. Nobody mentioned the elephant in the room. The day after Christmas, Karen went back to the hospital for a 12-hour shift. The kids were meeting up with old high school friends. Michael had the day off. He should have felt relieved to have the house to himself. Instead, he felt anchorless. He made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the pile of bills he'd been avoiding. Credit card statement, $34,287.52. Minimum payment due, $847. He'd paid $200, all he could scrape together. Interest alone was eating him alive. "This is impossible," he muttered. His phone rang. Unknown number. His finger hovered over decline, but something made him answer. "Hello? Is this Michael Richardson?" A man's voice. Polite, southern accent. "Who's asking?" "My name is James Peterson. I got your number from Tommy Hernandez. He used to work for you." Michael's defenses went up immediately. "If this is about debt collection..." No, nothing like that. I'm actually calling because, well, this might sound strange, but I need some custom furniture made. And Tommy said you were the best craftsman he ever worked with." Michael was silent for a moment. "Mr. Peterson, I don't have a workshop anymore. I closed my business 2 years ago." Tommy mentioned that, "But I'm not looking for a business, I'm looking for a craftsman. This is a personal project. I appreciate the call, but I can't help you. Could we at least meet for coffee? 15 minutes. If you're not interested after that, I'll leave you alone. There's a Starbucks on Charlotte Avenue. I know where it is. Tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock? Michael should have said no. He had 100 reasons to say no. But he heard himself say, "Fine, 15 minutes. Michael arrived at the Starbucks at 10:05, deliberately late. He'd almost not come at all. James Peterson was easy to spot. A black man in his early 60s, silver-grey beard, wearing a simple sweater and jeans. He had the kind of face that looked like it smiled a lot. He stood when Michael approached. "Michael, James Peterson, thank you for coming." His handshake was firm and warm. "What can I get you?" "I'm fine." "Come on, at least let me buy you a coffee. It's the day after Christmas. Treat yourself." Michael relented. "Medium coffee." "Black." While James ordered, Michael studied him. This guy didn't look like someone with money. No expensive watch, no designer clothes. But there was something about him, a calm confidence, like a man comfortable in his own skin. They sat at a corner table. James wrapped his hands around his own coffee cup. "So," Michael said, "what's this furniture project?" James smiled. "Direct. I like that. But before we get to that, can I ask you something? Tommy said you were one of the best woodworkers he'd ever seen, but also one of the most miserable men he'd worked for. What happened?" Michael bristled. "That's pretty personal for a first meeting." "It is." "You're right. I apologize." James took a sip of coffee. "Let me tell you a bit about myself instead. I'm a financial counselor, have been for 35 years. I help people who are drowning in debt find their way back to solid ground." "You a debt consolidation guy? Because I've gotten those calls." "No, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm a counselor, not a salesman. Most of my clients come through church referrals. I work on donation basis. People pay what they can, when they can." "Why are you telling me this?" James set down his cup and looked at Michael directly. "Because Tommy didn't just recommend you as a craftsman. He called me because he's worried about you. He said you were like a father to him, and he hates seeing you like this. He asked if I'd be willing to meet with you." Michael's jaw tightened. "So this is an ambush?" "No, the furniture project is real. But Tommy hoped that maybe, while we worked together, you'd let me help with the other stuff too." Michael stood up. "I don't need charity." "Michael, wait." James's voice was gentle but firm. "Sit down, please. 5 more minutes." Against his better judgment, Michael sat. "Pride is expensive," James said quietly. "I know. I've been where you are. Different details, same hole. 23 years ago, I had a landscaping business, 50 employees. Then I made some bad investments, trusted the wrong partner, and lost it all. Ended up $130,000 in debt with a wife and 3 kids. I was 40 years old and working night shifts at a warehouse, dodging calls from creditors." Michael looked at him sharply. "You're serious?" "As a heart attack. Took me 7 years to dig out. 7 long and hard years. But I did it. And that experience taught me more about money, faith and humility than I'd learned in my whole life before that." "So what? You're going to tell me to pray harder?" "Have more faith." "No, I'm going to tell you that hope without a plan is just a wish, and a plan without hope is just drudgery. You need both." Something in Michael's chest loosened slightly. "I don't even know where to start." "That's what I'm here for. But first, I really do need some furniture made," James explained. His granddaughter was getting married in June. He wanted to commission a custom hope chest, an heirloom piece, walnut with hand-dovetailed joints. His budget was modest, $12,500. "I don't have a workshop," Michael reminded him. "Tommy said you still have your essential tools in your garage." "It's a garage, not a workshop." "Does it have electricity and room to work?" "Yes." "Then it's a workshop." James smiled. "Look, I'll be honest. I could buy a decent hope chest online for $800. But that's not what this is about. My granddaughter, Jasmine, is marrying a good man. They're young, they're starting out with nothing. I want her to have something that'll last, something with meaning, something that says, your grandpa believed in quality, in craftsmanship, in building things to last. Michael felt something stir in his chest, the first interest in work he'd felt in years. I'll need to see the space first, make sure I can actually do it. Fair enough. When? How about now? Michael's garage was exactly what you'd expect, cramped, dusty, full of boxes and holiday decorations, but in one corner, covered with tarps, was his equipment, his table saw, his planer, his collection of chisels and hand planes, the tools he'd been unable to part with. James walked the space, nodding. This'll work. Might have to move some stuff around, but it'll work. They spent an hour clearing space, pushing boxes to the sides, sweeping the concrete floor. Michael pulled the tarps off his equipment. Dust flew. But underneath, the tools were still there, waiting. He ran his hand over the cast-iron table of his table saw. Haven't used this in 2 years. Think it still works. Michael plugged it in and flipped the switch. The motor hummed to life, familiar and steady. He turned it off, and in the silence that followed, he felt tears in his eyes. Yeah, he said quietly. It still works. They sat on overturned buckets in the garage, surrounded by the smell of sawdust that still lingered in the corners. Okay, James said, let's talk about the other project. What other project? Getting your life back. Michael shook his head. You don't understand how deep the hole is. Try me. What's the total debt? Around $87,000. James didn't flinch. Income. I make about $2,800 a month at the store. Karen brings in about $4,200, but between the mortgage, utilities, food, minimums on the debt, we're about $600 short every month. We've been juggling which bills to skip. I'm 3 months behind on the truck payment. What about assets? Like what? House equity? Retirement? Anything you could liquidate. Michael laughed bitterly. I cashed out my 401k in 2021 to try to save the business. Took a huge penalty. The house has maybe $40,000 in equity, but we already borrowed against it. James pulled out a small notebook. Okay, let's list every debt, every interest rate, every monthly payment, everything. Why? Because you can't fight an enemy you can't see. We're going to drag this into the light and look at it. All of it. For the next hour, they went through Michael's finances, every credit card, every loan, every bill. James took notes without judgment, asking questions, clarifying details. Finally, he set down his pen. All right, I'm going to be straight with you. This is serious, but it's not hopeless. I've seen worse. Really? Really? You're not behind on your mortgage. That's huge. You have income. Not enough, but it's something. And most importantly, you're not bleeding anymore. The business is closed. You're not taking on new debt. The wound is closed. Now we just need to heal it. How? Step by step. First, we're going to call every creditor and explain the situation. Most will work with you if you're honest. We'll negotiate lower payments, maybe settle some debts for less than you owe. It won't be easy, and it won't be quick, but it's doable. And if they won't work with me, then we explore other options. But Michael, here's what I need from you. I need you to believe that this is solvable. Not easy, not fast, but solvable. Michael looked at the numbers in James's notebook. 3 months ago, he would have said it was impossible, but something about seeing it all written out, organized, named. It felt less like a monster and more like a problem. I don't know if I can believe that. Then borrow my belief until you get your own back. That's what faith is sometimes. Borrowing someone else's certainty until you can stand on your own. Michael couldn't sleep that night, but for the first time in years, it wasn't dread keeping him awake. It was something else. Not quite hope. Not yet. But maybe possibility. The next morning, James called. You ready to make some phone calls? Now, no time like the present. I'll walk you through it. They started with the smallest debts, the ones Michael could potentially pay off or settle. James coached him through each call. Good morning. My name is Michael Richardson, account number ending in 4782. I'm calling because I'm struggling financially and I'm trying to work with all my creditors to create a sustainable payment plan. It was terrifying. Michael expected to be yelled at, threatened, humiliated, but most of the representatives were surprisingly understanding. Some couldn't help much, but others. His smallest credit card, $2,400 balance. The company agreed to accept $1,500 as settlement in full if he could pay it within 30 days. I don't have $1,500, Michael told James. Not yet, but you're about to earn $2,500 for the Hope Chest. After materials, you'll clear at least $1,800. You settle that debt. You've killed one bill entirely. The next call, his truck payment. He was 3 months behind $1,350 in arrears, and they were threatening repossession. What if we lose the truck? Michael asked James. What's it worth? Maybe $8,000. I owe $11,000 on it. So you're underwater. Do you need it? Michael hesitated. Not really. I mean, it's nice to have, but Karen has a car. We could share if we had to. What if you sold it privately, paid off what you could, and negotiated the remaining balance? Your monthly payment is what, $385? Yeah. That's $385 a month, freed up to attack other debt. Michael had owned that truck for 6 years. It was the last symbol of his old life, when he was a business owner who needed a truck for deliveries. But what was he holding on to? Pride, or a tool he no longer needed? Okay, he said quietly. Oh, let's sell the truck. That afternoon, James came over with a laptop and a simple spreadsheet. We're going to build a budget, a real one. Every dollar has a name before the month begins. Karen joined them at the kitchen table. She'd been skeptical when Michael first mentioned James, but there was something about the older man's calm competence that put her at ease. They listed everything. Income, $7,000 combined, Michael's job plus Karen's nursing. Essential expenses, mortgage, $450, utilities, $280, food, $600, insurance, $320, gas, $200, minimum debt payments, $450, total essential, $4,300. That leaves you with $2,700, James said. Where does it go? They looked at their bank statements. The truth was ugly. Eating out, $450 a month. Karen's Starbucks runs, $120 a month. Streaming services they forgot they had, $65 a month. Michael's cigarettes, a habit picked up during stress, $180 a month. Impulse purchases, random Amazon orders, $300 a month. We're just bleeding money, Karen said quietly. Most people are, James said without judgment. It's death by 1,000 cuts. But here's the good news. You have margin, real margin. You're not actually broke, you're just disorganized. They rebuilt the budget. Cut streaming to one service, save $50. Karen makes coffee at home, save $100. Michael quits smoking, save $180 and live longer. Strict grocery list, no eating out, save $350. No impulse purchases for 90 days, save $300. Total monthly savings, $980. Add that to the $2,700 you already had, and you've got $3,680 in margin. That's your weapon. That's how you kill this debt. Michael stared at the spreadsheet. It's that simple. Simple? Yes. Easy? No. You're going to have to say no to yourself 1,000 times. You're going to have moments where you want to give up. But Michael, Karen, you can do this. Karen reached across the table and took Michael's hand. We can do this. James pulled out a piece of paper and drew a diagram. This is called the debt snowball. You're going to list every debt from smallest to largest. You pay minimums on everything except the smallest. The smallest debt gets attacked with everything you've got. When it's gone, you take that payment and roll it into the next debt. The payment gets bigger as you go, like a snowball rolling downhill. The list: 1. Visa, $2,400, can settle for $1,500. 2. Medical bill, $3,200. 3. Personal loan, $5,800. 4. Truck, after sale, $3,000 remaining. 5. MasterCard, $8,700. 6. Bank loan, $12,000. 7. Home equity, $10,000. 8. Brothers loan, $15,000. 9. Business line of credit, $28,000. Focus on the first three, James said. If you get those done, you'll have momentum. Momentum creates hope. Hope creates discipline. It's a virtuous cycle. How long will this take? Karen asked. James calculated. If you keep the intensity up, stay on budget, and use any extra income for debt. 3 to 4 years for everything. 4 years? Michael's heart sank. I know that sounds like forever, but think about it this way. 4 years from now, you'll be 51 and debt-free, or you'll be 51 and still broke. The time's going to pass either way, might as well use it. Michael started working on the hope chest. His hands remembered what his mind had forgotten, how to measure twice, cut once, how to read the grain of the wood, how to feel when a joint was right. The walnut he'd ordered was beautiful. He ran a hand planer over it, watching the translucent shavings curl away, revealing the rich brown grain beneath. The familiar smell of fresh-cut wood filled the garage. Jake found him out there around 10 p.m. "Dad, Mom says you've been out here for 6 hours." "Has it been that long?" Michael straightened, his back protesting. "What are you making?" "A hope chest. For someone's granddaughter." Jake picked up one of the side panels, examining the dovetails Michael had cut. "Dad, this is beautiful. I forgot how good you are." "I forgot too." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. "Dad, I've been wanting to say something about money." Michael tensed. "Jake, just listen. I know things have been hard. I know you feel bad about college. But I want you to know, I'm not mad. I'm not disappointed. You're still my hero. You're the guy who taught me that work matters, that building things with your hands matters. The college loans suck, but I'll pay them off. I'm going to be okay. We're all going to be okay." Michael's eyes burned. "I wanted to do better for you." "You did. You showed me what a man looks like when he doesn't quit, even when everything goes wrong." After Jake left, Michael stood in the garage for a long time, looking at the partially finished hope chest. For the first time in years, he felt like himself. Michael's truck sold faster than expected. He'd listed it for $8,500, hoping to get $7,500. A contractor called within hours and offered $8,200 cash. They met at a bank, did the paperwork, and Michael walked away with a check. After paying off the loan, $11,000, he still owed $2,800. The bank agreed to a payment plan, $200 a month for 14 months, no interest. It hurt to hand over the keys, but when Michael walked away, really walked away, he felt lighter. That afternoon, he completed the hope chest. It had taken him 3 days of intense work, and it was some of the best craftsmanship he'd done in years. The dovetails were perfect. The finish was smooth as glass. The brass hinges he'd found at an antique store fit perfectly. When James came to pick it up, he stood there silently for a full minute, just looking. "Michael, this is magnificent. This is exactly what I wanted. Better than I imagined." Michael felt a flush of pride he hadn't experienced in years. "You really think so?" "I know so. Jasmine is going to cry when she sees this." James ran his hand over the smooth walnut surface. "You know what this is? This is a man remembering who he is." James handed him a check for $2,500. Michael stared at it. "First real money from woodworking in 2 years," he said quietly. "It won't be the last. I've already got 3 friends who want to commission pieces after they see this." That evening, Michael and Karen sat at the kitchen table with the check. "Okay," Karen said, pulling out James's budget worksheet. "Materials for the chest were $650. That leaves $1,150. Michael nodded. "We settle the visa for $1,500. That kills the first debt completely. Then we have $350 left." "We should celebrate," Karen said. "Not big, but something. We haven't had a date night I can't even remember." Michael looked at his wife, really looked at her. When had the lines around her eyes gotten so deep? When had her hair started showing grey? She'd carried them for 2 years while he'd been drowning in his own head. "You're right. Let's do $50. Dinner at that little Italian place you like. Michael Richardson, spending money on a date. Are you feeling okay? She smiled, but her eyes were wet. I'm feeling different. Not fixed, but different. The next morning, Michael called the credit card company and paid the settlement, $1,500. When the representative confirmed the account was closed and satisfied, Michael felt something crack open in his chest. 1 debt down, 8 to go. "Karen!" he shouted up the stairs. "We killed one!" She came running down. "Really?" "Really. The visa is gone. Dead. Finished." They stood in the kitchen, and suddenly Karen was crying and laughing at the same time, and Michael was holding her, and it felt like the first time in 2 years they were on the same team instead of just surviving separately. Michael had to work New Year's Eve. The store was having a sale. But this time, he didn't mind as much. He helped a young couple pick out materials for their first DIY project, a bookshelf for their new apartment. "You know about woodworking?" the guy asked, looking at Michael's orange apron skeptically. "A little," Michael said, then stopped himself. "Actually, yeah, I do. I owned a custom furniture business for 15 years. Let me show you what you really need." He spent 20 minutes teaching them about wood selection, proper joinery, finishing techniques. The couple left with better materials than they'd planned to buy, and the knowledge to use them correctly. Michael's co-worker, Derek, watched the interaction. "Dude, you should teach classes or something. You're like a wood whisperer." "A wood whisperer?" "Yeah, man. You make it sound cool. I actually want to build something now." A seed of an idea planted itself in Michael's mind, but he tucked it away for later. Karen had asked Michael to go to the New Year's Eve service at church. He'd avoided church for so long that the idea made him uncomfortable. But something was different now. He'd been talking to James about faith, about the way forward, about hope. "Okay," he'd told her. "Let's go." Christ Community Church was packed. Michael and Karen slipped into a back row. He recognized faces, people he'd been avoiding for 2 years. Tom from the men's group, Sarah, who used to sing in the worship team, Pastor David. When Pastor David took the stage, his message was simple: the God of new beginnings. "Some of you are here tonight feeling like 2023 broke you," Pastor David said. "You're not sure how you made it to this moment. You're not sure you want to face another year. You're here because someone dragged you here, or because you had nothing better to do, or because some small part of you is hoping, just hoping, that maybe God hasn't forgotten about you." Michael felt like the pastor was speaking directly to him. "I want to tell you something. The God we serve specializes in resurrection, in taking what's dead and making it live again, in taking what's broken and making it beautiful, not through magic, not through shortcuts, but through the slow, painful, glorious process of transformation." Pastor David paused. "Some of you need to hear this. It's okay that you're not okay. It's okay that you've been angry at God. It's okay that you've questioned everything. God is big enough for your doubt. He's not afraid of your honesty. In fact, he's been waiting for you to stop pretending and start being real with him." Michael felt Karen's hand slip into his. "The question isn't whether God can handle your mess. He can. The question is, will you let him? Will you stop trying to do it alone? Will you accept help? Will you take the first step, even when you can't see the whole staircase?" They counted down with the congregation, 10, 9, 8. Michael thought about Christmas Eve, 5 days ago, sitting in that park, broken, empty, praying a desperate prayer. 5, 4, 3. He thought about James, the hope chest, the budget, the first debt falling, 2-1. "Happy New Year." Karen turned to him, tears streaming down her face. "Happy New Year, Michael." "Happy New Year, baby." They kissed, and it felt like the first kiss in years. Not just a peck, but a real kiss. Connection, partnership, hope. Outside, fireworks exploded over Nashville. Inside, Michael Richardson felt something he hadn't felt in 2 years, the belief that tomorrow might actually be better than today. The first week of January brought a cold snap to Nashville. Michael worked on 2 new commissions, a coffee table and a nightstand. Working in the garage in the cold wasn't ideal. But he didn't care. He was building again. James stopped by twice a week, checking in on the finances. They'd paid off the medical bill in full, $3,200. The second debt was gone. The snowball was rolling, but it wasn't easy. There were moments when Michael wanted to quit, when he saw something he wanted to buy and couldn't, when he had to tell Emma he couldn't help with her rent, when Karen came home exhausted from double shifts, and they couldn't even afford to order pizza. "This is harder than I thought," Michael admitted to James one evening. Good. Good. If it was easy, you wouldn't value it. You're not just paying off debt, Michael. You're rebuilding your character, your discipline, your relationship with delayed gratification. The debt is just the scoreboard. The real game is becoming the kind of man who doesn't end up here again. Michael had never thought about it that way. Derek from the hardware store approached Michael during a shift. "Hey, so I mentioned to my manager that you know everything about woodworking. He wants to know if you'd be interested in teaching a Saturday workshop. The store sponsors them. You'd get paid $200 for a 2-hour class. They provide the materials and space. Teach, like, in front of people." "Yeah? Beginner stuff. How to build a simple shelf or something. We've been wanting to do it for a while but didn't have anyone qualified." Michael thought about it. $200 for 2 hours was more than he made in a full day at the store. And it was doing what he loved. "Let me think about it." That night, he talked to Karen. "What if I'm not good at teaching?" "Michael, you taught Tommy, Sarah, and Miguel everything they know. You're a natural teacher, you just don't realize it. What if nobody shows up? Then you still get paid $200 for trying." The first workshop was scheduled for the last Saturday in February. Woodworking basics, building your first project. 15 people showed up. Michael was terrified. But once he started talking about wood, about tools, about the satisfaction of building something with your own hands, the fear melted away. He taught them how to build a simple floating shelf. He showed them how to measure, how to cut, how to sand, how to finish. He told stories about his own mistakes, the lessons he'd learned, the joy of seeing a project come together. At the end, a woman in her 60s approached him. "Thank you. My husband passed away last year. He loved woodworking. Being here today, I felt close to him again." Michael's eyes filled. "I'm glad, really glad." The store manager asked him to do another workshop, then another. By May, Michael was teaching twice a month, making an extra $400. Every penny went to the debt. By June, 3 more debts were gone. The momentum was undeniable. Michael's brother, David, lived in Kentucky. They hadn't spoken much since Michael borrowed the $15,000. It sat between them like a wall. In July, Michael called him, "David, it's Michael." "Hey, man, everything okay?" "Yeah, I wanted to talk about the money I owe you." Silence. Then, "Michael, I told you not to worry about it until you're back on your feet." "I know, but I need to tell you. I'm working on it. I've paid off 6 debts so far. I've got a plan. Your loan is next. I'm going to pay you back, every penny, with interest. You don't have to." "I do. Not for you. For me. I need to make this right." David's voice was thick. "You sound different." "I am different. I'm not fixed yet, but I'm healing. I'm proud of you, little brother." Michael hadn't heard those words in years. They hit him like a wave. By September, Michael had paid off 7 of the 9 debts. The only ones remaining were his brother's loan, $15,000, and the business line of credit, $28,000. His teaching workshops had grown. He was now teaching 4 times a month, making $800 extra. Word of mouth brought more custom furniture orders. He'd cleared $12,000 from woodworking in 9 months. The store manager approached him with an offer. "How would you feel about coming on as our full-time woodworking specialist? You'd manage the lumber section, consult with customers, teach workshops, $22 an hour. Full benefits." It wasn't what he used to make as a business owner, but it was $5.50 more per hour than he made now, and it was doing what he loved. Michael accepted. In October, Michael did something he'd never thought possible. He paid off his brother's loan, in full, $15,000. David drove down from Kentucky. They met at the same park where Michael had prayed on Christmas Eve, almost 10 months earlier. Michael handed him a cashier's check. "Mike," David stared at it, "this is every penny plus $800 interest. It's not enough to make up for how long it took, but..." David pulled him into a hug. A real hug, the kind that said everything words couldn't. "I never doubted you'd come back," David said. "You're the most stubborn son of a gun I know. But Mike..." "I'm not taking the interest. Use it for your last debt." "David, not negotiable. Brothers don't charge brothers interest, especially not when they're watching their brother become who he was always meant to be." December arrived again. 1 year since that desperate prayer in the park. Michael had one debt left. The business line of credit. $28,000. The big one. The monster. But he wasn't afraid of it anymore. He had a plan. He had momentum. He had hope. On Christmas Eve, exactly 1 year after his darkest night, Michael stood in his garage workshop, no longer cramped and dusty, but organized and alive. Orders were stacked on a newly built workbench. His calendar was full of teaching workshops. His marriage was stronger than it had been in years. The debt wasn't gone yet, but it was dying. Every month, another chunk disappeared. James estimated they'd be completely debt-free by June 2025. Emma and Jake were home for Christmas. The tree was bigger this year. There were actual presents underneath, nothing extravagant, but thoughtful, chosen with care instead of desperation. After dinner, Emma pulled Michael aside. "Dad, I need to tell you something. You know how I'm applying for residencies." "Yeah? I got my first choice, Johns Hopkins. I found out today." Michael grabbed her in a bear hug. "Emma, that's incredible. Dad, I learned something this year watching you. You showed me that falling doesn't define you. Getting back up does. When things get hard in medical school, when I want to quit, I think about you in that garage, building hope chests at midnight. You didn't give up, so I won't either." Later that night, Michael found himself back in the park. Same bench, same cold December air, but everything was different. He didn't need to pray desperately this time. He just wanted to say thank you. "God, a year ago, I sat here broken. I didn't think I'd make it to this moment. I didn't think things could change. But they did. Not the way I expected. Not with magic or lottery tickets, but through work and discipline and people you put in my path. James, Karen, my kids, even strangers at workshops who reminded me why I loved building things." He looked up at the stars. "And I'm not done yet. I've still got debt to kill. I've still got work to do, but I wanted to say I see you now. In the plan, in the process, in the slow rebuild. Thank you for not giving me what I asked for, a quick fix. Thank you for giving me what I needed, a reason to become someone better." A text from Karen. "Where are you? Jake wants to watch a movie." Michael smiled and typed back, "Coming home." Home. It felt different now. It wasn't just a house with bills he couldn't pay. It was a place where hope lived, where a family was healing, where tomorrow was something to look forward to instead of dread. As Michael walked back through the cold December night, past the Christmas lights and the decorated houses, he realized something. He wasn't the man he used to be, but that was okay, because the man he was becoming was better. On June 15th, 2025, Michael Richardson made his final payment, $28,000. Gone, eliminated, destroyed. 18 months after that desperate Christmas Eve prayer, 18 months of discipline, sacrifice, early mornings, and late nights. 18 months of saying no to wants and yes to needs. 18 months of slow, steady progress. He made the final electronic transfer at 9:47 p.m. on a Monday night. Karen was beside him, watching the screen. "Confirm payment," the screen asked. Michael's finger hovered over the button. This was it. The last one. He clicked. Payment processing. Payment confirmed. Your balance is now 0 zeros. Karen burst into tears. Michael just stared at the screen. 0. After years of being underwater, gasping for air, drowning in numbers and stress and fear. Zero. They didn't throw a party. They didn't post about it on social media. They just sat there, holding hands, crying. "We did it," Karen whispered. "We actually did it. We did it," Michael echoed. That night, Michael wrote James a letter. He'd learned to appreciate the written word. Something about putting pen to paper felt permanent, meaningful. "Dear James, 18 months ago, you bought a hope chest you didn't really need from a broken man who'd forgotten how to build. You could have gone anywhere else. You could have bought cheaper. But you saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. You didn't just teach me about budgets and snowballs and debt payoff strategies. You taught me that hope without a plan is just a wish, and a plan without hope is just drudgery. You taught me that God doesn't always answer prayers the way we want, but He always provides what we need if we're willing to do the work. Today, Karen and I made our final debt payment. We're free. And while the numbers are important, the real victory is this. I remember who I am again. I'm a craftsman, a husband, a father, a man who doesn't quit. The hope chest you commissioned sits in your granddaughter's house now. I like to think it'll outlive us all, a reminder that good things take time, that quality matters, that building something to last is always worth the effort. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible, for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself, for being the answer to a prayer I didn't even know how to pray. Your friend, Michael Richardson. In August 2025, Michael did something crazy. He rented a small workshop space in Germantown, not big, just 800 square feet. But it was his. "Are you sure about this?" Karen asked. "We just got out of debt." "I'm sure. But this time, I'm doing it differently. No employees, no overhead I can't handle. Just me, doing what I love, building quality pieces for people who appreciate them. If it works, great. If it doesn't, I've still got my job at the store. Richardson's Custom Furniture 2.0? No, something different. Something that reflects who I am now, not who I used to be." He'd been thinking about this. "Hope and Hammer Woodworks." Karen smiled. "I love it." One Saturday in September, a teenager showed up at Michael's teaching workshop at the hardware store. 16, maybe 17, quiet, kept his head down. After class, the kid lingered. "Mr. Richardson, can I ask you something?" "Sure. How do you start? Like, if you wanted to do this for real, not just a hobby. You want to be a woodworker." The kid nodded. "My dad thinks it's stupid, says there's no money in it, says I should go to college and get a real job." Michael saw himself in this kid. The doubt, the fear, the love of something that felt impractical. "What's your name?" "Marcus." "Marcus, let me tell you something. 3 years ago, I lost my business. Lost everything. I ended up working retail for minimum wage, thinking my life was over. But you know what I learned? It's not about whether there's money in woodworking. It's about whether woodworking is in you. If it is, if you can't imagine doing anything else, then you find a way. But what if I fail? You will fail. Probably multiple times. I did. But failure isn't permanent unless you decide it is. You know what the difference is between people who make it and people who don't. The people who make it get back up one more time than they fall down." Marcus looked at the table he'd built in class. "This is the first thing I've ever made that I'm actually proud of." Then that's where you start, one piece at a time, one skill at a time. And Marcus, if you're serious about learning, come by my workshop on Saturdays. I'll teach you everything I know, free. All I ask is that someday, when you're successful, you pass it on to some other scared kid. Marcus's eyes went wide. Seriously, seriously. I had someone invest in me when I had nothing. Time to pay it forward. Christmas Eve, 2025. 2 years since the desperate prayer. Michael's workshop was closed for the holidays, but he'd spent the morning there finishing a commission, a dining table for a family in Franklin. 8 feet of solid oak, handcrafted joinery, a finish like glass. His work had gotten even better, more refined, more confident. The business was modest but sustainable. He wasn't getting rich, but he was making enough to cover the workshop rent, buy good materials, and add to their savings. Combined with his store job and teaching workshops, they were comfortable, really comfortable. They'd started a small emergency fund, $5,000. It wasn't much, but it was something, a cushion, a buffer between them and disaster. That evening, the family gathered. Emma was home from Johns Hopkins, where she was thriving. Jake had graduated and landed an engineering job in Chattanooga. After dinner, Jake stood up. "Hey, I have an announcement. I paid off my student loans last month. All of them." The table erupted in cheers. "Dad," Jake said, looking at Michael, "you showed me how—" "I used your Snowball method. Budgeted every dollar. Said no to stuff I wanted so I could kill the debt. It sucked, but it worked. So, thanks." Michael couldn't speak. He just nodded, eyes wet. Later, when everyone was watching a movie, Michael slipped outside. He needed a moment. He stood in the driveway looking at the small house, the lights in the windows, and thought about how far they'd come. His phone rang. "James." "Merry Christmas, Michael." "Merry Christmas, James. How's Jasmine?" "Wonderful. She and her husband just told us they're expecting first great-grandchild." "That's amazing." "Michael, I called because I wanted to tell you something. I've been doing this financial counseling work for a long time, helped a lot of people. But watching your journey, watching you go from broken to whole, it reminded me why I do this. You didn't just change your finances. You changed your life, your family, and you're changing other people now, like that kid Marcus you told me about. I'm just passing on what you gave me. No, you're passing on what you earned. There's a difference. I gave you tools. You did the work, and Michael, I'm proud of you." Those words. The same words his brother had said. The same words his kids had said. The same words he could finally say to himself. After they hung up, Michael stood there in the cold December air and he prayed again. But this time it wasn't desperate. It wasn't empty. It was full. "God, 2 years ago, I asked you for help. I asked you to show me something, anything. And you did. Not the way I expected. You didn't drop money from heaven. You didn't make my problems disappear. You gave me something better. You gave me James. You gave me a plan. You gave me strength I didn't know I had. You gave me a reason to get up and try again." He looked up at the stars, the same stars that had been there 2 years ago when he felt so alone. "I don't know what comes next. Maybe another crisis, maybe more hard times. Life doesn't stop being hard just because you pay off debt. But I know now that I can handle it, not alone, never alone. But with you, with my family, with people who believe in me, I can handle whatever comes." He smiled. "Thank you for not giving up on me when I gave up on myself." Friends, that's Michael's story. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be just his story. It can be yours too. Maybe you're listening to this right now and you're in your own December 2023. Maybe you're drowning in debt. Maybe you've lost a business, a job, a dream. Maybe you're lying awake at 3 a.m., calculating numbers that don't add up, wondering how you'll make it through another month. Maybe you've stopped going to church because you're ashamed. Maybe you've stopped answering the phone because you know it's creditors calling. Maybe you've stopped believing that things can get better. I want you to hear this. You're not alone. You're not the first person to hit rock bottom, and you won't be the last person to climb back out. Let me share what Michael learned, what James taught him, what worked. You can pray all you want, but if you don't take action, nothing changes. God doesn't usually drop money from the sky. He gives you strength to work, wisdom to plan, and people to help. But you have to do the work. Write down every debt, every bill, every dollar you owe. Look at it, all of it. It's scary, but it's necessary. You can't defeat what you won't acknowledge. Michael didn't pay off $87,000 overnight. He paid off $2,400 first, then $3,200, then $5,800, one debt at a time. The momentum builds, the snowball rolls, but you have to start. Before the month begins, tell your money where to go. Food, rent, debt, savings. If you don't control your money controls you. Fifth, discipline is freedom. It sounds backwards, but it's true. When Michael learned to say no to wants, he gained the freedom to say yes to what mattered. Discipline isn't punishment, it's power. Sixth, you become who you surround yourself with. Michael found James. He reconnected with his family. He invested in Marcus. You need people who believe in you when you don't believe in yourself, and you need to be that person for someone else. Seventh, failure isn't permanent unless you decide it is. Michael lost his business. He worked retail at 47. He felt like a failure. But failing at something doesn't make you a failure. Staying down does. Here's what I want you to think about. What would your life look like 18 months from now if you started today? Not 18 years. Not some impossible timeline. Just 18 months. If you started today, made a budget, called your creditors, stopped the bleeding, started the snowball, where would you be in June 2026? Would you have 1 debt paid off? 3? All of them? Would your marriage be stronger? Would your kids see a parent who doesn't quit? Would you sleep through the night without anxiety crushing your chest? The time is going to pass anyway. December 2026 is coming whether you change or not. The question is, what version of you will be there to meet it? Michael's story isn't really about money. Money was just the scoreboard. The real story is about a man who lost hope and found it again. Not through a miracle, not through luck, but through the slow, hard, glorious process of becoming someone new, someone stronger, someone humbler, someone who knows that rock bottom is just a foundation if you're willing to build on it. If you're listening to this and you're at your rock bottom, I want you to know, the bottom is where rebuilding starts. You can't fall any further. The only direction left is up. And maybe, just maybe, that desperate prayer you prayed, that moment when you finally admitted you couldn't do it alone, maybe that wasn't the end. Maybe that was the beginning, your next 7 days. I'm going to challenge you. Just like Michael had 7 days between Christmas and New Year's Eve that changed everything, I want you to think about your next 7 days. What if you spent the next week doing these things? Day 1, write down every debt you owe. All of it. Look at the number. Don't run from it. Day 2, write down every dollar coming in and going out. Track everything for 1 day. You'll be shocked where your money actually goes. Day 3, make a budget. Every dollar gets a name. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just start. Day 4, call one creditor. Just one. Ask about payment plans, settlements, options. You'll be surprised how many are willing to work with you if you're honest. Day 5, find one thing to cut from your budget. Not forever. Just for the next 90 days. Put that money toward your smallest debt. Day 6. Tell someone you trust what you're going through. A friend, a family member, a pastor, a counselor. You can't do this alone. Stop trying. Day 7. Pray. Really pray. Not a performance, not religious words. Just honest, desperate, raw prayer. Tell God exactly where you are and ask for help. Then get up and take the next step. 7 days, that's all I'm asking. Just 7 days of action instead of paralysis. 7 days of hope instead of despair. 7 days of becoming instead of staying. Michael's 7 days between Christmas and New Year's Eve changed his life. What could your next 7 days change? The ending. That's really a beginning. 2 years after that desperate Christmas Eve prayer, Michael Richardson was debt-free. He had a workshop. He was teaching. He was building. He was whole. But the best part, he was becoming the man his crisis was meant to create. Stronger, wiser, humbler, more grateful, more generous, more alive. Your crisis can do the same for you, if you let it. The question isn't whether you'll have hard times. You will. Life guarantees that. The question is, what will you build from the rubble? Michael built a hope chest, then a coffee table, then a new business, then a new life. What will you build? The tools are in front of you. The plan exists. People are ready to help. God is listening. All you have to do is start. Today. Right now. This moment. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not when things get easier. Now. Because hope isn't something you find. Hope is something you build. 1 day at a time. 1 decision at a time. 1 step at a time. Michael built his hope with walnut and oak, with budgets and snowballs, with early mornings and late nights, with tears and sweat, and the refusal to quit. What will you build yours with? The year 2025 is here. 2026 is coming. They're both blank pages waiting for you to write on them. What story will you write? Michael wrote a story of resurrection, of comeback, of a man who fell down and got back up. You can write that story too. You really can, so take a breath, say a prayer, make a plan, and start building. Your hope chest is waiting. If Michael's story touched you, if you're ready to start your own journey from debt to freedom, from despair to hope, I want you to know you're not alone. There are people like James in your community, financial counselors, pastors, friends who've walked this road before. Find them. Ask for help. Let them walk with you. There are resources available, budgeting apps, debt payoff calculators, financial peace programs. Use them. Don't be too proud to learn. And most importantly, there's a God who specializes in resurrection, who takes what's dead and makes it live, who takes what's broken and makes it beautiful. He hasn't forgotten about you, even in your darkest December, even in your deepest debt, even in your most desperate moment. He's there, not to magically fix everything, but to give you what you need to fix it yourself. The strength, the wisdom, the hope, the people, the plan. All you have to do is ask and then take the first step. Michael did. You can too. Verse for your meditation. For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. Jeremiah 29:11, KJV.